Brandon does it. Yeah, yeah. You know this.
Hello, and welcome to my channel, Brandon Does It. Today, we are being interviewed by my friend Jaz, host of The Q over at Channel Surf, right here on YouTube, and I'll make sure to tag her down below. This is about my book, Plan Save Buy, which you can get on Amazon or my site, brandondoesit.com. It is a book not only for children, but for anyone who is looking to learn about buying a home in a more approachable way. So without further ado, here's Jaz and I. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and comment down below. And turn your notifications on for my next video. All right.
Hey out there, my name is Jasmine Henley Brown, and I'm a digital talk show host of The Q and Channel Surf. I typically am talking to people about film and TV, but today I'm breaking form a little bit because I want to talk about one of the most important topics that any adult or any person really is going to have to deal with, and that is buying a home. We're talking about real estate, y'all. And in another life, I was actually a real estate agent. If you listen to me on Channel Surf, you have heard me talk about this before, but if you're new here, yes, before I was doing this and working in media, actually, I was still working in media, but very fickle. Anyway, real estate was something that I did. I'm also a recent homeowner, but this today is actually not about adults buying home. It's about the kids and how they learn about the home buying process. I'm chatting with my personal friend, Brandon, and he just wrote a book. Called Plan Save Buy, and it's all about teaching children about real estate. So let's welcome Brandon to talk about this book. Hello, Brandon.
Woo! I love the
Welcome.
introduction.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. So I'm so excited. Thank you. I'm so excited to have you to talk about Plan Save Buy. I read it. And I want to just tell you one of my favorite things about the book, outside of the fact that you're teaching about the home buying process to children, which I think is brilliant, is your use of like teaching phonics for certain words within the book. And I think writing this book is obviously ultimately going to help with the financial and generational wealth and wealth gaps, but I think it's also contributing a little bit to our literacy crisis, with people being unable to read and sound out different words. So I really love that you included that component in the book.
Thank you. It was really important because, like you said, there is an obvious wealth gap. We know there is now a literacy gap. Cursive is not being taught. And that pretty much is like how I came to do the book in this way, because, I'm an older millennial and I remember hooked on phonics. Like if you had trouble reading, your parents got on the phone, got the hooked on phonics, and next thing you know, you Michael Jordan of reading. And then we also had like Book It, where you get the pizza party.
Yes.
If you read like 18 books then in a day, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had heard that they don't teach phonics anymore. That's not how they teach reading. It's like sight words. And so I was like, what if I infuse phonics into what I'm doing, so it'd be easier to read and understand?
Yeah, I love that, and I didn't know that they're not teaching phonics anymore. Like, actually, I want to take that back. I did read something on TikTok where somebody said it, but everything you see on TikTok, you have to take
Mhm.
it with a grain of salt. And so someone did mention that, and they were saying basically they just teach children how to, like they're teaching them the letters, right?
Yeah.
So like if you see a word, and you know how the English language is, certain words can be spelled the same way but pronounced completely different, have completely different meanings. So if you're unable to decipher like kind of what a word means, you might see a word, and because you just recognize the letters, you aren't actually able to comprehend what you're reading, because I don't know, am I explaining that
Yeah.
correctly?
No,
Okay.
absolutely. It's so they do sight words and it's just only relying on what you're seeing. I also wanted to do something where I infuse like the learning of discernment, because
Mhm.
that's really what people need, because we in scam season.
Yes.
So you need some discernment to be like, no, that's not what that is. Or,
Yeah.
like that. So it's like slow down, sound it out, and you'll get there.
Yeah. So take me back to the beginning of Plan, Save, Buy. What was the moment that you realized that this book needed to exist?
So the moment was 2 years ago when I actually was writing a different book. I was writing an adult focused book. So I am a realtor. I'm licensed in Georgia, and I was working. You come in contact first time home buyers, different people, because really the nature of the game is socializing. So
Mm-hmm.
just talking to different people, and the responses I was getting, my spirit said, "Oh, you're just afraid. Like you don't really have a problem. Like you're really afraid of rejection, or you're afraid that you don't understand." Or something like that. And then at the same time, I was learning about Dr. Joy DeGrew's work with post traumatic slave syndrome. And like in learning about that, I'm like, I wonder if the hesitation for first generation African American home buyers is really rooted in post traumatic slave syndrome versus like economic anxiety and fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to write that book. It ended up being a workbook, and then when I started um, to share it with people, they were like, "Who is this for?" And I told them who it was for, and they were like, "They're not going to read it. They're not going to read it at all." So I was like, "Okay, okay." And it started to snowball from there because I have teacher friends, and they're talking about like children not being able to read. Then I started to research literacy rates, which don't do it.
Pressing.
You will spiral,
Yeah.
and and I saw that like 54% of American adults read at or below a sixth grade level. So then I'm like, okay, well, a sixth grader can't buy a house. They wouldn't be able to understand a contract. So I'm like, 54% of American adults can't read the contract. And a home is the foundation of the American dream. So that automatically like takes you out because how
Mhm.
can you get a home if you can't read? Um, and then I also love Drag Race. I'm a huge RuPaul's Drag Race fan. And
Yes,
Trixie
same.
Mattel, right, exactly. And Trixie Mattel was talking about her makeup, and she was like adult things in toy packaging. And so I was like,
Mm.
how can I put this adult concept in a toy package? And so the book was initially for adult with low literacy rates. That's
Okay.
why in some places it's a little more wordy than what you would do for a traditional child's book,
Right.
because it was actually for an adult. I wanted something that was like less intimidating. And then my editor was like, okay, well, how are you marketing this? And she was like, because adults who can't read have already resolved to not reading, so they're not going to buy it. And I was like, okay. She was like, but people who will buy it are people that want their kids to have a heads up. And so that was the moment I now had a children's book. And I'm actually glad that I made that pivot because what I'm coming across as people buy it and interact with it is parents gravitating towards the book because it's something they wish they had growing up.
I absolutely love that, and I think that's so earnest of you to write a book for initially writing a book for people with low literacy rates, because I think the initial, um, kinda knee-jerk reaction is to write those people off. Well, if they are an adult and they can't read, then whatever, but I think there still should be things that exist for that subset of people, especially if it's 54% of our population. That's over half of the people that walk among us who are unable to read. And so, with this being a children's book, I think bringing up what Trixie Mattel said is so brilliant because yes, it is for children. It's marketed for children, but if there's 54% of adults who cannot read higher than the sixth grade reading level, when they are getting this for their child, it's not intimidating for them, and they might read it also. So you kind of are hitting both of your targets with this.
Yeah, my hope is that this is a family thing
Yes.
and families learn together because community is so important right now.
Mhm.
And I really wanted something that foster community. Like at the heart of it, it really is about community because I just think it's different growing up in an apartment versus a home in a neighborhood.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Can I tell you a funny story about my childhood?
Absolutely.
Okay. So this is you're gonna laugh at this, but you know what? No, you know me, so this might not be that out of the out of the realm. So when I was little, my dad bought us this big house, right? Like I think I only ever lived in like an apartment with my mom and dad when I was like a newborn child, right? But my dad bought us this house. It was like a 4-family home. He rented out the upstairs. We had the entire downstairs. So it was this huge house. We had a huge yard, all of this. I was so jealous of my friends who lived in apartments because as a kid, I didn't realize like the accomplishment of my father buying this home for us.
Mm.
When I would go to my friends' houses who lived in apartments, all I was like, they live in a building and other kids live in the building with them. I used to be so jealous. And it wasn't until I became an adult, though, that I realized, like, wait a minute, this was a huge thing. They all wanted to come to my house. Like, I had all of the parties and the sleepovers and stuff at our house. And had something like this book existed, or like, my parents taught me about the importance of real estate as a kid, I would have understood a lot earlier that that was a huge accomplishment on my dad's end versus like going years being like, I want to live in the building with other kids.
That is so funny and it's so you. I love it. It's so innocent. And I have like a similar story. I didn't know that people didn't own their homes until I was like 16.
Oh, you thought everyone who lived in a house owned it?
Yeah. I had no clue because it was just so normalized in
Yeah.
my family.
Mm-hmm.
Like my grandfather, the house I grew up in, my grandfather gave it to my mom. It was supposed to be a part of her inheritance, but he was like, "Girl, you need this right now. So just go ahead and move on in." And we still have that house. Like all the houses that my family have, we still have them
I love that.
in the family. So it was normal for me to own, just like it was normal for me to like buy houses sight unseen.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I got out in the world, I was like, oh, what's this? Like rent? Like, what do you mean? What's a landlord? That's why, like in the book, I said I sound out landlord.
Yeah.
And that was a nod to my younger self because I didn't know what a landlord was until I was like 16, 17.
Yeah. I like that we had that privilege growing up. I know that
Yeah.
is not the reality of, so many children. But like you mentioned, it is so innocent. You know what I mean? Like you are a product of your environment. You're conditioned to believe the things that you see as a child. And if you don't see home ownership at an early age, you don't understand it. Or if you see it at an early age, it does become normalized to you. And I think that's the most beautiful thing. So with this book, hopefully this gets in the hands of parents and this becomes something that's normalized for children, for them to not only understand the importance of home ownership, but also how to plan, save, and buy a home when they get older, because we're all not going to be gifted a house like your mom was.
Right. Right. Look, that's the hope. Hopefully we're setting that up, but
Yeah.
to be real, it's not happening. Why it's scary.
Yeah. Was there something missing in your childhood education around money or housing that influenced this book? And I think you may have just touched on that with telling the story. So I don't know that there was something missing versus just maybe not understanding.
What was missing was reinforcement, like financial literacy reinforcement. So obviously, my grandfather, he owned businesses, he owned land, he owned property. He did that, which is incredible on its own. But there's a missing component, like how to will it to your children properly, or how to really build a business with really leaving a legacy, how to leverage credit, because I also didn't learn about credit because at the time my grandfather would just like save money. He also worked at the plant, like the Chrysler plant. He was a part of that great migration that went from like the south to the north.
Yeah.
For jobs in the 1940s.
Yeah, you guys ended up in Detroit.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so he would just save money and like buy a house. So I didn't even know anything about like a mortgage, getting a mortgage, working with an agent. Because at this time you could go to Hey Joe Schmo how much you want for this house? Here's this money. Give me the
Mhm.
deed, and we're out. So I didn't learn about like actual home buying until like my mid-20s.
Yeah.
So
I
that
there's
part was missing.
And I agree with you on there, and there's so many parallels too between our upbringing, because that's how my dad bought his homes too. He just would buy them cash, and I remember when I wanted a car when I was 16 and I wanted to get a car note, and my dad's like, "If you can't buy it cash, you can't afford it." And that was always his mindset until so I totally understand about the reinforcement, like the financial literacy reinforcement, being missing. I feel like that as well. Um how did you decide what to include in this book to keep it age appropriate for children? Because as we're talking about money and financial literacy, it's a fine line between being understandable and then kind of going over the head of a child. How did you decide?
Um, Honestly, it took. I'm gonna be super transparent. I have probably one of the greatest network of people around me. And so while it was challenging because there was so much I wanted to include, I had the best people around to help me edit and say, like, take this out, do this. Like,
Mhm.
actually, literally the day before hitting publish, I switched the book around because at the end of the book, there is like an adults only corner,
Mhm.
and I break down different types of mortgages.
Yeah.
At first, it was in the main part of the book. And then two friends were like, I think you should move that to the back.
Oh.
And I moved it to the back, reread it, was like perfect, hit the button, and that was that. So honestly, it was just having the right people to help me during the editing process to be like, okay, this is too much.
Yeah.
This is going left. Like I basically allowed myself free reign. Write the
Yeah.
book exactly how you would, just get it all out there, and then allow like trusted advisors to come in and say, okay, move this, take this out. This is too much. There was some going back and forth because I'm like, they actually told me that the book was still too long.
Mm.
But I was like, this is I'm like, there has to be some sort of challenge because buying a home is challenging. Like I have to
Sure.
present the challenge somewhere, or I'm really doing more harm than good because it's like, oh, I could just snap my fingers and get a house, and that is not how it works.
Yeah.
But I was able to get it down to where it is now, and I really love it. It was difficult, but I just kept going back to, can my nephew
Yeah.
understand it, and he's 6. Like, can a 6-year-old handle this? Now these new 6-year-olds, they're teaching me something.
Yeah.
So, they are right. I'm like, okay, y'all got it.
They're advanced for sure, and that's a good litmus test using your nephew. Was there a particular concept that was harder to simplify for children versus others?
Yes, the mortgage process, like
Yes.
getting the loan.
Yeah.
Um, because there's so much jargon. Like, we're using loan and mortgage interchangeably, but on paper, uh, a mortgage is a type of loan.
Yes. Yeah.
And like the difference between deed and title. Because even as an adult in the field doing the work, I still be like, really? But that's the way it is. We can't, we're not, we can't change it. So I would say, explaining the mortgage process and the difference between deed and title.
Mhm.
I went back and forth on, and that was probably like the most challenging thing.
Yeah. I can imagine that too because I run into adults not they don't misunderstand the difference between the deed and the title. They misunderstand the difference between the deed and the mortgage. Like so
Mhm.
many people are using those things interchangeably, and I'm like, well, the mortgage, in the simplest way, I tell people the mortgage is what makes you financially responsible for the home, but you can be on the deed and be an owner of that home without being financially responsible, without being on that mortgage. I meet a lot of adults who don't understand that, so it's really good to teach kids, teach children that early. And then also mortgages. I mean, there's so many different mortgages and like the terms and like I sold real estate, and I still am like, when we were buying our house, I was like, what the hell is all of this?
For real. For real. It's so like I remember going through real estate school and I was like, this don't make no sense.
Yeah.
What you mean fee simple?
Yeah.
And what you mean an easement? What's an easement? What's going on? What you mean I can have a fixed rate mortgage? And mortgages are just 30 years. You can have a 15-year, you can have an adjustable rate. Why would I want an adjustable rate? And then how come doctors get their own mortgage?
And what the heck is a jumbo loan? Like,
why would I get a bridge loan?
yeah.
Like
so you could have gone, I love that you edited yourself to just keep it as simple as possible for children, because I imagine getting into the types of mortgages that you can get and all that, that's way over a 6-year-old head. Your nephew would not be able to.
I wanted to keep it to bare bones home buying.
Yeah.
You are buying a primary resident with a mortgage. That's what this book is. To me, I feel like I use that as like my foundation. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you can go up or under, but the baseline is getting a 30-year mortgage to buy a primary resident.
Yeah.
And then you branch off from there.
Exactly. How does introducing these ideas to children help to kind of eliminate fears later in life?
One, children are confident learners. Children learn without shame. You don't get shame until you have grown up and you're doing things out in the world. So I think introducing this concept to them now, when they get older, it is going to be, like anything else, riding a bike, going to college. Mm-hmm. And my next book is going to be about house hacking. And so pretty much like, what your dad did by buying the 4-family resident and keeping one area for you all and renting it out. I'm putting that in the book where the parent buys a house for the kid in college and rent out the rooms to build equity. So these won't be foreign concepts when they're adults and of age.
Yeah.
And it's really about like planting the seed to normalize it. Because I think when people don't have the background like we have, and it's a foreign concept, and you're the only one doing it, because I've had clients like that where like nobody has ever owned a house.
Right.
And like my last clients were like that, to the point where one of them didn't even tell their family that they were buying a house because they don't know and they're gonna tell me not to do it.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is my hope, my intention with it is to normalize home buying to where when they get older, they can decide like, maybe I want to do a duplex and rent out the other side. Maybe I don't want to live by nobody and I'm just going to get this house for, me and my family. But it's normal. It's not, they won't lean into it with fear.
Yeah. I love that. And I think saying that too, that even that last part is not them not leaning into it with fear. Because I think there is a lot of unintentional fear that people drive in terms of the economy and the home buying process. Everywhere you look, it's like the cost of living is so high. Like we can't afford anything. I think that study came out talking about like how many millennials are not homeowners. And I feel like when you're focusing on that narrative, it scares the younger generations, and like they start to feel like that's going to be even more impossible for me. If millennials can't even afford a home, I'm not going to be able to either. But I think your approach is very optimistic, and it's like, hey, understand how to do this, because this can be a reality for you, even if it looks different, because you mentioned this book being for families and being for community. I think we're going to see a lot more buying like that with future generations, a lot more intergenerational living. They're building homes. You work in real estate. They're building homes for multi-generational living.
Multi-generational homes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's super important that you are coming at this very optimistically and saying, just understand the basics of what this is, because no matter what the economy looks like, there's still going to be homes being sold and people buying homes.
That's exactly what I was about to say. With what keeps me optimistic about it is I have alerts on my phone for different houses. I just go
Mhm.
through and I'll like tag a house like, oh, this is interesting because I want to come back to it. Like how many days was it on the market? Like honestly, real like real estate nerd stuff. Like
Yeah.
what did it end up going for? Who sold it? Or all that stuff. But what it subsequently taught me was $1 million home is being sold every day. Somebody got money. Not everybody broke.
Yep.
I promise you, every day $1 million, multi-million-dollar home is sold without fail.
Yeah.
People got money. So I'm focused on there are people with money. I want to be one of those people. And then I believe that what you put out, you will receive.
I agree. I agree with you there. Would you want this book to be like put into schools? Because I think that's another thing that we know just with our generation. Financial literacy is not taught in schools. Like they are not teaching you like the basics, like the stuff that you need to learn when you're 18 and the world starts to get real. We weren't being taught that. I could totally see a book like this being in schools. Is that something that you would want?
Absolutely. I am actually working on I did my first pitch yesterday actually. Um with a bank and it is getting the funds to be able to go into the schools because there's different red tape and
Yep.
so it's easier to get into the school um as like a program
Mhm.
versus going to the school board and trying to change the curriculum because I'll be honest, I just don't think that avenue is available right now.
Okay.
Wink wink nudge nudge. um so going to a lot of people don't know this, but banks get money to do like financial literacy programs in the community.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is the dyslexia is trying to jump in, but essentially it's like a community reinvestment fund or
Okay.
reinvestment act, and they get credit for the government for using these funds to provide financial literacy programs.
Huh.
And so what I am doing is workshopping or basically asking for money to do workshops in schools, specifically like in low income areas.
Mhm.
Um, because we weren't taught how to buy a house or do taxes or a couple of us may have gotten like a resume towards like senior year, but
Mhm.
that wasn't common for everything. And with this book and the way that I have it, I believe that it can go from like elementary to high school.
Yes.
You just are teaching it different ways. But because the high school kids, they're not reading books, they're not even teaching whole books. They're teaching passages.
What?
I'm friends with high school teachers, and in some cases, the kids aren't even reading like whole books. I remember we had in senior year of high school. I'm dating myself. Senior year of high school, at the beginning of the year, you had to pick one author. And every semester you had to read and do like an in-depth book report. We talking like 5 pages of the best writing you have ever done in your life, right?
Mhm.
You had to read that book because that teacher knew if you didn't read the book because we didn't have, AI and
Right.
all that stuff. We had Spark Notes, which was
We did.
not reliable, right? So now because the attention span is gone, they're only assigning like passages. It's hard for them to get them to write 5 paragraphs on or 5 sentences, like a paragraph on the fly.
That scares me. I loved nothing more than reading when I was in school.
Let me tell you, reading English, writing a book report. When I would write a book report that will take you out. Okay, this book report, I was ready to. Only person ready to turn a book report in. I'm like, oh, you about to gag at this writing because I know this story back and forth. What are you talking about? When they used to do the little reading test, like to show what your level
Yes.
is, and in like the 10th grade, it came back that I was reading at a college level. I was correct.
Right.
Yeah, yes, I
You know?
am.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That literally me and my friends and I, we would use that as bragging rights that we were reading above our grade level. Like that was like tea. Like, oh, we're in 4th grade. You read at a 7th grade reading level? Like, oh, like yeah, that was I don't know. That was seen as cool back then. Like being smart was very cool. Wow, times have changed. You're not letting the kids read books. Lord.
The kids are not reading books. It's hard for them to read books. So I'm hoping that this information, the way that it's packaged and presented, will open up those doors for other people. Because I mean, all the stats are there, like the wealth gap, home ownership. It's all there. Like
it is.
So nothing. I'm not gonna say something is not working. Why not try this?
I agree. And another thing that I want to point out about the book that I think is going to be so helpful, especially with everything that you're explaining to me with how children have these short attention spans, like the best way for kids to retain information is like through music, through song. It's really easy. And then I'm making an assumption here, but my assumption is if it's not through song, the next best way is through like rhyming or kind of like poetry, right? Which this book, everything rhymes, so it's easy to remember because there's a rhythm, there's a flow to it, and I think that's super helpful for helping people to retain information. I'm like that. I remember when I went to see Hamilton, my fiance took me to see Hamilton. I was like, I remember more about Hamilton from this musical than I remember from what I learned in history in history class.
You absolutely are correct. That's exactly why I added in the rhyming element, because remember when the TV card used to come in and they popped that movie in, and I feel like I got so much from the art of it all. And they don't teach art in school, but we know that art is important in development, or some people act like they don't know. But anyway, art is so important. Poetry is important.
Yes.
And I'm not a singer, but I do like a good rhyme. My intention was really like, what if Dr. Seuss wrote a book about real estate?
I love that.
And so this is like my homage to the Dr. Seuss books using what I know.
That's amazing. That's so clever too. I love that so much. Oh my gosh. And now you have me thinking about all the things that were utilized to teach us things. Remember Schoolhouse Rock?
Yeah.
That's how I learned a lot about the political system. I'm just a
bill on Capitol Hill.
A bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Like so many things were taught to us that way that I still remember. And I'm like, yeah, this is how I learned X, Y, and Z. So the rhyming aspect, super brilliant of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How do you think parents can use this as a tool, like an ongoing tool versus just like a one-time, I'm reading this to you and we forget about it?
So what I think, and that's a great question. So what I am hoping is that the family reads the book once and then makes the decision to do it, and they reference the book at every step of the way.
Yeah.
To see how their own life is mirroring the book.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, we've been saving our birthday money. Let's see what it says after, we save up our money.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, all right, we applied for the loan. We got the pre-approval. Let's see what it said. Let's see what we did before to get here. How was our experience? And more of like a reference tool, because I also think about how, we had encyclopedias. Like there was, you wanted to know something, you had to reference, the Dewey Decimal System. Like, you had to reference. So in my heart of hearts, I hope it becomes a reference.
I do too. I think it can be used that way.
And something that they pass along, every time there's a new member of the family. Every
time a child turns 6 in the family, get this book for their birthday.
Exactly.
If there was one thing that a child could take away from this book, what would you want that to be?
Hope.
Come on, Obama.
Hope. I think hope is so important, especially for the moment that we're in. I think we need a lot of hope to meet this moment in a safe and grounded way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would want them to leave with hope in whatever dreams that they may have.
Yeah, I love that. What's some feedback that you've received so far that has really stuck with you?
Oh, that's a great question. Having grandparents say that they wish they had the book when they were younger.
Oh, that is touching. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I have a great next door neighbor. Like I
Mhm.
love my next door neighbor. And she has a niece. That's like stay with them always over. And I was like, what's her name? Because I didn't tell her I wrote a book. I was like, I have something for you. I want to give it to you.
Mhm.
And she came over. I gave her the book. She was so surprised. She then texted me like later that day and was like, "Hey, how much is your book?" And so I was like, "Oh, it is $19.99 on Amazon," and like sent her the link. And she was like, oh, "Okay," because I showed it to my stepfather and he loved it, and I'm gonna buy him one. And she was like, "When I get it, it's supposed to be here Christmas Eve? Can you sign it for me?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." So I like wrote his name in there and like a little message and signed it. But he has said that he was like, "This is so well written. It's something I wish I had when I was younger." And I was just like, I wasn't expecting it. Like
Yeah.
honestly, I was like, "Oh, I'm a mess." I'm a mess right now.
Do you feel like this book can help close the generational wealth gaps?
The eternal optimist in me wants to say yes.
Mhm.
But I also know the truth is that it is a drop in the bucket in some of like the larger overall problems. I do hope the book provides a source of healing or an avenue for
Mhm.
healing, um, and bringing families together.
Yeah.
Because the truth is we're losing recipes. Our legends are hitting it,
Yeah.
okay, and quick. And they haven't given us everything that I think we need to move forward. And millennials are like the new adults now. So I'm like,
Scary
"Mm,
times.
okay, right." I was like, "Ooh, no, not me." But but I'm like, what can I leave or what can I do? And this is it. Like I said, the home is the foundation of American dream.
Mhm.
For so long, it was my own family, house, picket fence, dog, go from there.
Mhm.
So if you don't know how to get the foundation of the basic dream and promise of the land, where do you really go from there? And we see it,
Yeah.
so
I understand that. And I think there's so much discourse around what is the American dream? Has the American dream changed? I think at the most basic level, that foundation that will never change. Having somewhere to lay your head that is yours, that's never going to change. And that's never going to be something that people don't aspire to have. So it's great that you talk about that as the foundation of the American dream. No matter how different the other dream looks, right? You might not want a family, you might not want a dog, you might want a cat, you might want a
mhm,
python.
mhm.
You still want a home at the end of the day for everything. So I love that. What would you tell a child who thinks that home ownership is not for someone like them? And I'm just talking about, home ownership and the accessibility or inaccessibility, right? Transcends race, it transcends Actually, it's more of a class thing now, right? Because
Yeah.
there are no laws that say certain races can't own homes. It's a class thing. So what would you say to any child who feels like homeownership isn't for someone like them?
I would first ask them, who is someone like them? I want to know. And where does that person live? And then hopefully inspire them that, maybe owning a home is not for you. That's true. But maybe owning an office building is.
Mm.
Like, we're always engaging in real estate. Like, my whole thing in selling real estate, I don't sell, I just present information and guide you through the process. I
Yeah.
don't have a house to sell. It's somebody else's house. Like, I'm
Mhm.
just facilitating the transaction, but we're all engaging in real estate. Everything, everywhere you go, everywhere, the grocery store, work, home, school, that's all real estate. It all matters. You are involved, whether you're paying your property taxes to keep a school open,
Mhm.
or you're paying a landlord to rent the apartment or house that you're living in. Everybody's engaging with it. Just know what you're engaging with and make decisions based on that. Because most people are basing decisions on what they heard from a third party
Right.
versus their own knowledge and intuition.
Yeah. That's so true. And yeah, it doesn't matter where you see yourself living. Maybe it's not a house, maybe it's a tiny home. You still want to own that tiny home. Maybe you want to just live off the land. Guess what? You still need to own that
You need to
land.
own that
You
land.
wanna own that land. Everywhere you turn, you have to plan, save, and buy, and I love everything about this book. What's next for you?
What's next is uh bringing workshops to the community. Um, Also, I have the next book, which is House Hack Heroes, that will accompany this because it's really a series, and really just getting it everywhere that I can. So I did, in creating a book, I also created a publishing company. It's MG&B Publishing, and Plan Save Buy was our first imprint, and so I'm working on the second one, and also build a community around the book.
I love that. Brandon, you are a mogul, okay?
I'm trying to be like you.
Ah, please. Please,
I'm
I everybody watching, Brandon and I have been friends now over a decade. Oh my god. Oh my god. But Brandon has always been very community driven. He's helped me in times when like I really, really needed it. And this is just an extension of the person that you are. You are taking it to another level. We're trying to help entire generations understand the home buying process. And I'm so proud of you. If you want to tell people where they can buy the book, they can find you and follow you, please do that.
You can follow me pretty much everywhere at Brandon Does It. At brandondoesit.com, you can purchase signed copies of the book. I also have merch. I have some future homeowner shirts and mugs. Those are fun. Um, and you can also get the book on Amazon, Plan Save by Brandon Curitan.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming to chat with me. I enjoyed talking to you about your book.
Anytime. I love talking. I talk to you for hours.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into my chat with Brandon. That's Mr. Brandon. If you plan to buy his book, Plan, Save, Buy, like he mentioned, you can purchase it on Amazon, and then you can also follow him. Make sure, even if you don't have children, it's still a good book to have. Like, I was reading it and I was like, oh, this is entertaining. I love the illustration. I love everything that the book stands for. So if you want to buy it for yourself, buy it. If you want to buy it for a child in your life, make sure you do that. But just continue to support these endeavors to really close the generational wealth gaps and teach the next generation about planning, saving, and buying. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Thanks again for watching. And make sure you subscribe and turn on those notifications so you never miss a video. Until next time, take care.
Brandon does it. Yeah. You know this.